give me a sign.
You are live.
From the Gettysburg Museum of History Studios, high atop Baltimore Street, in a maximum security facility complete with central air, it's AG Today.
Hi, this is Matthew Leach. I played First Sergeant Talbot in Band of Brothers.
Hi, this is licensed battlefield guide Paul Bailey.
Hi, I'm Dale Fetzer.
Hi, I'm John Rothman.
Hi, this is Bo Brinkman.
Hi, this is Anthony Bordner. I'm a huge fan of Addressing Gettysburg. It is the greatest and most quality podcast ever. And you're listening to it right now. God, you're so lucky.
Don't ever go on America Got Talent. You won't make it.
Did you say Ed Lincoln?
Never fight uphill, me boys. Never fight uphill.
Don't give them
3rd
fuel.
Battalion, 3rd Marine Infantry Regiment.
I could house that load.
You're listening to Addressing Gettysburg
today.
Where did this idea come from?
Hello, Charlie. How are you all doing? Welcome to this episode of Addressing Gettysburg Today. It is June 13th, the Ides of June.
No.
All right, the 13th of June.
Yep.
All righty, and we are back in the saddle after an exciting 5 days. Oh, let's see, 4 days. Well, yeah, 4 days at CWI over at Gettysburg College, and it was a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. I had a lot of fun. Did you have a lot of fun?
No, I did. I had a very good time.
And this was your first?
It was, indeed.
Okay, and you got there because...
oh, God, here we go. Because I was given free tickets through Addressing Gettysburg.
Wow. That is amazing. And that's great for you, of course, right? I
Thanks,
mean, who wouldn't love that? No, but we had fun. We interviewed some people together, you and I.
We did.
And you got to go and sit at some lectures with me for the people that we were going to interview.
And I only cried through one.
You did.
I did. I was a mess.
And you weren't there for his interview.
No, I wasn't.
Yeah, he was really good.
I bet he
was.
was.
The interview is also, that'll come out tomorrow night, and it also will make you cry.
Oh, will it?
Thomas Flagel.
Yeah.
What's that?
Is that the 1913 one?
Yes.
Yeah, I was like...
I know. I was there with you.
Yeah, it was really good.
Slightly embarrassing.
Meh.
The whole weekend is just so well put together, and I have to, you gotta shout them out there because they do a lot of work, and it's the staff of 4.
It's a lot of moving parts.
A ton of moving parts, but they get it done. They somehow do it, and they do a great job at it, but it was marred with sickness and illness and disease.
Botulism.
Botulism. I found out that.
Yeah, everybody, listen to this and then feel for me. Go ahead, Matt. Tell them what happened.
So Cindy's in the back there running the cameras. Colby's out again. For some reason.
Hello.
Hi. So Cindy, as you all recall, last Thursday I did the show hunched over because I thought that I had eaten too many cherries.
I still think that's part of the problem.
Well, maybe, I don't know. I mean, who knows? So I thought it was either that or food poisoning or something, but cherries seemed to be somehow involved.
Mm-hmm.
And so all day Thursday, after the vomiting,
you give us the details,
in the
Matt.
morning,
that's really helpful.
Yeah.
After that, I just started getting body aches and chills about the time we were doing the show. In the middle of the show, I started feeling it, right? And I went home, and we were laying on the couch, and I fell asleep, 9 o'clock in?
Yeah, about 9.
9 o'clock, but it was such a deep sleep, and then something woke me up at 9:30, and I said to Cindy, what time is it? And she's like, 9:30. I'm like, 9:30? Because I felt like I was asleep for hours.
Mm-hmm. I love when that happens.
Me too.
It's my favorite.
And the best part is I could go right back to sleep.
I know.
Yeah. So
it's like a snow day.
I could not move. I was sore. I had the heating pad under my back because my back was hurting. from the soreness. And I slept on the couch till about 6 a.m. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And had a hard time getting out of bed till about 10. But then I was like, all right, we have to go set up at CWI. And I hadn't really packed everything up yet because I was going to do that Thursday during the day, but I was sick. So anyway, we get there Thursday or Friday, and then the body aches start kind of going away around 3. But now I'm just sore. Like I felt like I had a hangover. Just your whole body is kind of okay.
Blah.
Well, yeah, your whole body is just kind of blah, and you're just slow, and like you just no energy and everything like that. And that's the way I felt all the way through Saturday. And then about Saturday afternoon, Cindy goes home to let Major out, and she calls me, and she says the following.
Oh, boy.
I don't think you had food poisoning.
And I said, uh-oh, why? Doesn't sound like you at all.
Because I just threw up.
And I was like, oh, no, there's a bug.
Yeah. And yet
And-
they continued to hang out with us.
Sure.
Right?
Well, the show must go.
Well,
No,
not you,
Cindy
Cindy.
stayed home.
Cindy was the intelligent one who removed herself from the equation.
Intelligence has nothing to do with it when a show is on the line. You've got to do the show. The show
Continued to
must
breathe
go
on
on.
us in a small room. It was,
Well,
great,
listen,
guys.
I'm sorry. I'm very sorry about that. But anyway, we somehow muddled through. By Sunday at 6, all the pain and aches, and I felt back to normal. Everything went away.
I did not.
You did
I
not,
was-
though. You were in bed till basically Monday night, right?
For work on Tuesday, yeah.
Yeah, you got out. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, yeah.
I thought I was so surprised that happened to you, Cindy, because you were pretty lethargic all morning.
I was
And then-
tired. That's
Yeah, you looked.
Didn't really have an appetite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we went to lunch, and then you were laughing at me for making 6 questions. Go get me my pop. And then I thought, oh, she's good. She's feeling better. She's got some energy back. This is great. And then Matt comes back in, and he's like, oh, she threw up. We're
I'm sorry.
Like,
What?
oh no.
Yeah.
So
Oops. So whatever. We all got sick. No, she and I got sick. You guys were okay though. Nobody caught anything, right?
Nothing.
Good. I'm glad to hear. You would have had it by now. So
absolutely.
Yeah. It was not fun. Whatever it was, cherries or some kind of flu. It must have been a flu because I had never felt like that before. I don't think I've had the flu or a stomach flu. Like I just
you must have the immune system of an amazing immune system.
Until I hit
am
my
sick
40,
all the time.
Yeah, until I hit my 40s, I rarely got a cold. Like it would. Sometimes I would go on a 2 or 3 year stretch without getting anything, and it was annoying because I never had an excuse to call out of work because I never got sick.
Oh,
And I'm not gonna fake it.
I try not to call out of work either, but a couple years ago I had like the entire month of December off because I was so sick and Ezra was so sick. He ended up in the hospital. And you sit there and you think to yourself, what have I become that I am sitting here in the pediatric unit of York Hospital with my child who is so sick he can't breathe. He's on like a breathing what are those things? Cannula?
I
Whatever
never knew
the
that
thing
had a
that goes
name.
under your
The
nose.
thing.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting in a chair coughing so hard that when the doctor comes in, he goes, "Who's the patient?"
Which one of you is the sick one?
And I was like, "It's him, but I probably should get tested."
The kid in the bed, technically, but
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
I mean, I was miserable. And so was Ezra, poor kid.
Yeah. Well, sickness happens. We all get sick. But anyway, so the CWI though, what do you have a highlight? Was there a favorite moment that you have?
Well, I loved seeing people that locals coming out. Saw a bunch of people who are members too, so that was nice. Of the foundation. And then the 1913 talk was amazing. I bawled through it.
I agree.
Yeah, that was really moving. I said to him afterwards, I said, I do this podcast and we're set up upstairs and I want to interview you because that was a very moving talk that you just did, and I said it's nice to see somebody feel when they give a presentation.
Mm-hmm.
And so
yeah,
he was
it was
like,
the way in which he delivered it.
Oh, absolutely.
He was getting choked up, and you know, it was great. And we had a really nice interview.
Good.
Yeah. I said something that made him go, oh my God, that's so great. And I can't remember what the hell it was. Luckily it's recorded, so we'll find out tomorrow when that comes out on YouTube.
Where Matt added in him saying,
Right.
oh, that was so great. What he was really doing was eating something really, good. But Matt put it in.
I was getting my strength
something.
back.
Yeah.
Last night, go ahead.
The other thing that I really enjoyed was just the speakers themselves. Like when you are working an event, when you are like the staff, you meet the people, but you don't really get to talk to them.
Right.
Because you are going, okay, now you have to be here at 2 p.m. and then you're going to do this and da-da-da-da-da-da. So you don't get to be friendly with them.
Yeah.
Doing this, we were able to have a conversation and really talk to everybody. And the two ladies that wrote the coming of age book,
about the boys in the army,
boy soldiers, they were lovely.
Francis and Rebecca Joe.
Yes, Francis and Rebecca Joe. And I could have talked to them the rest of the day.
Yeah, we had a nice interview with them. And that's the thing is, I mean, I don't know. I think Pete's got, he's got a sense of showmanship, Pete Carmichael.
No.
Yeah, I think he does.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I think he does. And
The
I think
scarf alone has its own like rider and
the scarf makes him look like a Broadway director or something. All he needs is a beret.
100% does.
So
and a megaphone.
Yeah. He has this he always gets really good speakers.
Yeah.
There's nobody who's dry. And even if they have a rather dry disposition, they have a very sharp wit and a good sense of humor. And he's really good at it. Like he knows what he's picking.
And there were several.
And that's, by the way, why I haven't been chosen to speak, because
he literally said to you, "You're going to do something next year, you weirdo."
He did?
Yeah, you're going to do a panel next year.
Sick?
Remember?
Yeah. No, I do. Yes. I don't know what I'm doing.
Which is it? Yes or no?
Wow.
I don't know.
What was I gonna say?
Oh,
how many of the speakers, like, you have the main stage, of course.
Yes.
But then you had the people that were in the other rooms, and how many of them said, "This is my first CWI, and I'm really nervous." As they started to speak.
Well,
that was kind of cool. Like I'm including myself in it, but Gettysburg and this conference that is held in Gettysburg is so prestigious that these historians are coming from all over the world. Really.
Yeah.
And they're looking at it as like, I'm really nervous. This is a big deal. Like that was so cute to see.
Well, you were with me when we went to Ryan Keating's talk, right? And he said that in the beginning, that he was nervous in the other building.
Yeah.
And he said that in the beginning, and then we interviewed him later. He came up to me at breakfast the next day, and because he was leaving, I think, and so he tapped me on the shoulder and shook my hand. And he said, "I had a lot of fun yesterday. Thank you for letting me do that and everything." Yeah. So it's nice to have everybody on, and I think we got some pretty good interviews this year. Just to give you all an idea of what to expect from the interviews over on YouTube, we already have Cecily Zander and Harold Holzer. And Harold Holzer, he, I think we told him 50. He was the first interview we did.
Yeah.
And so we were like, 15 minutes is what we're shooting for, just really, superficial stuff, And I think Eric was saying that there was at some point in the interview where he switched, like he looked kind of like, all right, I'll do this, I'll be a sport.
This is all right.
Okay, these stupid idiots. And then somewhere in the middle of it, he was just like, oh no, okay, I like this. And then and I said to him, I'm like, I know you want to go watch Pete Carmichael's thing, and he's like, well, no, I could stay longer, but I let him go. So we only did 20 minutes
and
with him.
He was kind of, I think, a little sad.
Yeah, I think he wanted to keep
leaving.
going.
I think he was like, oh, well, okay, if you want me to go, all right.
What was really nice is he invited us to do the same thing at the Lincoln Forum in November, which he did last year. And he and I had a Zoom like in August, I think, maybe July. And he said, all right, I have to talk to the board. And then I never heard back from him. And I reminded him of that. And he goes, oh, well, I'm the chairman this year. So So I guess it doesn't
Pretty
matter.
much that's your path.
Yeah. So that would be fun if we could actually pull that off too, because that's in November.
Mm-hmm.
But who else? Scott Hartwig, Scott
Fry.
Hancock, Zach Fry,
Ryan Keating,
Ian Dean.
Aaron Sheehan Dean.
another good
Yes,
one.
he was a good one.
he was hilarious.
Francis, their last names, it's hard enough for me to remember one person's last name, and when they come as
Francis
a team.
and Rebecca Joe.
Yeah.
Plant.
One of them is Rebecca Jo Plant.
Rebecca Jo Plant and Francis.
All I can think is Fayok, and that's the wrong.
No,
Francis.
it's not. It's not Fran Fayok.
Francis.
Oh, now I feel bad. I hope they're not watching because they're probably not anyway. So we're
She was
okay.
from Australia.
Yes, good day. And she knows Grant. She said that the whole continent makes fun of him.
Yeah,
like he's really a laughing
He's like
stock
their,
of Australia.
Civil War representative, like their mascot.
Right.
Francis Clark.
Clark. Thank you, Cynthia. So yeah, so it was a lot of fun. There's more interviews. I just can't remember them all. It was a good time. I always enjoy it, and I'm always sad when it's over because I got to wait a year.
Robert Levine.
Robert Levine. Yes, Robert Levine. That was interesting because he's actually an English professor.
Yes.
Talking about Frederick Douglass and his writing style.
Mm-hmm.
We had a lot of fun. It was pretty cool. And I think next year we're just going to do it all video. I tried to do audio recordings of the interviews, but I'm like, why? I just stopped doing that, and then we just did video for after you left. When you were done, I was doing both. I was doing video and audio, but it was mainly audio, and then I changed the whole thing.
I think the videos are better.
I do too, but I had no plan going into it. Because I had a busy week, and then I got sick the day before I had to go in, and I was like, all right, we're gonna wing it.
Hey Matt,
Yeah.
I have a question. Were you sick on Thursday?
I was sick on Thursday.
Oh.
Yeah.
I don't think you mentioned it.
Yeah.
Explains
the
a lot,
whole weekend.
doesn't it?
Yeah, the whole weekend there was never once mentioned that you were ill.
When I get sick, I am a baby.
Laura,
we did we walked around on a map, the Battle of Hampton Roads. That was fun. Yeah.
I am
we all played battleships. That was a little difficult though, video wise, because so again, when you see these videos, please keep in mind that we didn't plan to do video. So we didn't have the proper lighting for some of them. And the one we did with Laura we shot out of the window, but we couldn't remove the screen. And it's one of those screens that don't come up. It's like you got to pop the whole thing out. And we're like, well, I'm not doing that with the college's stuff. So we opened the window and kind of shot down. And we had wireless mics on us and stuff. And the problem was the sun was on the other side of the camera. So when it would come out from behind a cloud, it would fire a glare up at us off the map. So the map gets all washed out. But when the clouds come, and it's just a pain exposure-wise. So you'll have to bear with us there. Maybe I'll only put that on Patreon because I think it's a little too embarrassing to put out for the public. I think that's what I'll do.
I was embarrassed as I crawled off the mat when my ship sank. I didn't know I was going to never come back.
Yeah, you and Eric.
So I crawled off. I'm like, okay.
You and Eric played sinking ships. That was fun.
I didn't know I wasn't coming back.
Yeah.
I thought I was going to resurrect.
You did that, Sunday afternoon?
Yeah.
That's why I was probably volunteering.
Yeah, you were. You were.
Yeah.
That's right.
But
that's correct.
I met fans of the show.
I did too. Yeah. At CWI or when you were volunteering?
No, and volunteering.
Oh.
They came out to the Leicester house specifically because they knew I would be there.
Oh, nice.
That was very sweet of them. They did not, however, introduce themselves, so I have
you don't
no
know their
idea
names.
who it was, and I'm an idiot and didn't think to ask myself.
Yeah, that's what
But,
you have to do. Well, you have to ask their names so it looks like you're interested.
Matthew.
What? What? What did I say?
And the truth comes out.
No. Well, because
you had a lot of people coming up to you.
Yeah.
And being like, oh, Matt from Addressing Gettysburg.
Yeah,
I only had one.
Usually it's a couple, but this year there were a lot.
Yeah.
There were a lot. And Ashley told me that a lot of people told her when they signed up that they heard about it on the show. So we had a lot of people that actually responded to all those ads. So that's good. And so thank you all for doing that because that
We're so cool.
Well,
oh my God, popular.
Yeah. Okay. Oh,
You're gonna be
stop it.
popular.
Stop.
Over the weekend, that was his favorite song.
Ugh.
I would sing it to him.
Of all the songs.
Do you even know where that comes from?
Yeah. Wicked.
Wicked, which he only knows because I told him.
No, because I remember the commercials when it was all on Broadway. I was living up in North Jersey, and like the commercials on the radio were always like, popular. I want to be popular. And ugh.
Fair enough.
Why do they do that in musicals? Like, why do they train them to have those annoying voices?
Oh,
that's in her case. That's the character.
Yeah. And truthfully,
but it's all
it's Kristen Chenoweth, and so you can't say a bad word about her because I love her. So shh.
I don't know her.
She's wonderful.
Great.
She is pretty.
She done movies?
Yes.
Yes.
We had this entire
but I was sick on Thursday.
Hey.
He remembers nothing.
He was sick. I forgot. This was, again, never brought up. I just don't know when you were actually sick and when you were maybe bringing it up 25 times an hour.
I don't know. Anyway.
He literally told everybody. It was like walking down the hallway like, hey, I was sick this weekend.
but so was Pete Carmichael. He
had
missed
pneumonia,
it on Friday.
He did.
He said he had pneumonia.
No, bronchitis.
No, he said pneumonia.
Well, then he had walking pneumonia.
Maybe.
Whatever he had.
He sounded horrible.
He had a
looked
cough.
horrible.
Yeah, he was beat. And then Tuesday, Cindy and I went to the beer social at the end that they wrap it up with, which was
a beer social.
We had a lot of fun there, right, Cindy?
Yeah, it was very nice.
We talked to everybody. We talked to a lot of people, but Cecily Zander
It's very funny.
should be a comedian.
Yeah, she's very funny.
She's hilarious.
You can tell.
Huh?
She was when I went to change your schedule. I talked to her and she was like, "Yeah, I'll do whatever the heck he wants." You know, like just the way she did it. It was like, "Oh, you're funny."
Quick-witted, very quick-witted.
Super quick-witted, but like she has like a routine already for certain things. Like she's really, really funny.
Oh, good for her.
So her interview was up last night. We put that up last night. I had a lot of fun. It was the last interview that we did.
Yeah.
So it was fun. It was fun.
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
I did. I hope you guys did too.
I did.
And
absolutely.
I want to thank you for your help and 6 questions and Eric Houston. Who else? I don't want to miss anybody.
Casey
Turbin and Ken Mead. And I believe that is all. That we have, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep, that sounds right.
Yeah. So
I never get to actually go to the nerd things.
Yeah.
I'm always working.
Well,
so
stick with me, kid.
I actually got to go. It was really nice.
Yeah.
I got to be like, that's one of the things Mark said. I thought for sure I'd catch hell for being gone all weekend, you know? And I said, I'm sorry that I'm kind of leaving you here on your own. And he's like, no, you never get to do this.
Oh.
Yeah.
How nice of him.
I know.
It's true. You really don't. He always does. He gets the
he
nerd
goes
weekends.
to his nerd conventions. Yeah.
Well, that's good then. I'm glad to hear that. So now I take it back what I said last week about Mark being the guy who left the package at the visitor center. It doesn't look like Mark.
I showed him that picture and I said, Matt thinks this looks like you. And he goes, what? I'm not that bald.
Well, I'm taller than him and he is.
He's got side poofs though.
Yeah, like the Robert E. Lee side curl.
Yeah, he's got side poofs.
Well, anyway. All right, so listen, I'm very excited about our guest. He's been on the show a few times, actually, but I always like to talk to him. He's a very interesting guy, great interview, and he's got a new book out, ladies and gentlemen. And this book is about another very interesting moment in American history, and it's kind of poignant today because I don't know if you saw the news about Russian warships down by Cuba recently,
no.
In the last couple of days. Well, they're there. And this book is about the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Mm-hmm.
One of my favorite movies is a movie called 13 Days about that time. Very fascinating. Very fascinating. And you got to give it to Kennedy. You know, you got to give it to him.
Yeah, that was to say that was a tense situation puts it mildly.
I would think, yes, it was very tense. The name of the new book is called The Shadow of War. I went to 2 bookstores today to try to find it, and it's not there yet. I think it was released in May. Well, we'll find out all these answers. But that's what we're going to do. We're going to take a break. We'll come back with our guest, Jeff Shaara. And also, there's a special anniversary. We'll talk about that as well. So stick around. We'll be right back.
Aren't you glad you used Dial? We are too. We'll be right back. Gettysburg's first and premier podcast about living in and visiting Gettysburg has returned from that long commercial break. Thanks for sticking around. Here's Matt.
Okay, so like I said, Jeff Shaara is here. He's an author and historian. He was born in New Brunswick, New Jersey, so he shares the same curse I do, being born in the Garden State. Grew up in Tallahassee, Florida, though. He was redeemed. Graduated from Florida State University, degree in criminology, operated a rare coin business from age 16, and his father, Michael Shaara, died in 1988, and Jeff sold his business to take over running the estate. After the movie Gettysburg was released, he was approached to find someone to continue the story, and he decided to publish his first novel, Gods and Generals, and this year marks the 50th anniversary of the Killer Angels.
Yes.
50th anniversary. My, what a story that book has. Not only within its pages or cover, but also how it got to be the movie and the classic that it is. From 2007 to 2014, he served on the Board of Governors for the American Battlefield Trust. He now serves on their alumni board. And he recently released his newest book, The Shadow of War, which covers events dealing with the Cuban Missile Crisis. And that has nothing to do with cigars, as your niece thought. And also recently released the paperback version of the old line in his book about the story of Teddy Roosevelt. Welcome, Jeff.
Oh, pleasure to be here.
It is a pleasure to have you. And so Cuban Missile Crisis.
Yeah, it's I lived through it.
I mean, I was a kid.
Good point.
And remembering that and remembering the terror, and hanging on every word coming out of JFK's mouth, hanging on Walter Cronkite, every night what he's saying. And then going to school and having the ridiculousness, and I've talked to so many people who share this experience of duck and cover. I mean, the teachers they'd announce a certain time. The teachers would order all the kids to, get down underneath their desks.
Right.
And they would close the curtains. And this is in case there was a nuclear attack.
Right.
I mean, I'm talking dead serious.
Yeah.
And at the same time, we had the neighbor putting in the fallout shelter, and there's a little bit of that in the book.
Mm-hmm.
And again, the ridiculously of the fallout shelter.
Yeah.
I mean, it's this concrete block thing underground, and you're supposed to go down there with your whole family and wait. With however much food you can carry, and we're not sure exactly where you go to the bathroom.
Right.
And
that's a great point.
And they don't tell you because they don't know how long do you have to stay down there.
Yeah.
I mean, and I've said this many times: a year, 10,000 years.
Yeah, right, right.
Nobody really knows. So, the element of panic that infects the public, the general public. That's one part of the story, but the other part is what's really going on. What's going on in White House, in Washington, what's going on in Moscow, and that's really the part of the story that I like.
What do you think that was? Was that just to make people think there was something they could do so they wouldn't panic? The duck and cover and the fallout shelters, or did they really not know?
No, they definitely. I mean, Kennedy was aware that if the public gets panicked, it's going to be chaos because people will start heading for the hills. I mean, there's no way that's good.
Right.
I mean, there's no way that's going to come out. So, and I'm sorry to say this, but today the government's doing things, and this has been true ever since we've had a government. They don't tell you everything.
No.
There's things going on behind the scenes, and necessarily so. So. The idea of the missiles in Cuba, I mean, when that got out, that was something we had to do something about because it could have created a panic.
How did they discover the missiles?
We have this marvelous piece of equipment called the U-2 spy plane. Mm-hmm. The U-2 it's an odd-looking plane. It's skinny, and the wings are really skinny because it flies at 70,000 feet.
Yeah.
Airlines fly at 35,000 feet.
Right.
I mean, so a huge difference. They fly that high because there's nothing can touch them. They're sort of invulnerable. But so we're sending these things over Cuba. We actually sent one over Russia that got shot down because the Russians figured out how to shoot them down. They developed a missile that would go that high. So we're sending these things over Cuba, and we're taking photographs. I mean, they're taking thousands of photographs, and these every night they bring them into the CIA. They analyze the photographs, and when you look at them, if I look at them, I can't tell what they are.
Right.
But the CIA analysts know exactly what they're looking at, and they find missile launchers, and they find these big crates, that are 80 feet long, that have to have a missile in them. I mean, and then the ships, the Russian ships coming in, they film those, and they can see stuff on deck on the Russian ships because the stuff doesn't fit underneath. So it becomes pretty clear that the missiles are getting there. They're setting it up. Then one day the pictures come back and they're exact. And there are missiles there. That's when Kennedy has to take action.
So were they looking at Cuba because they suspected something like this was going on, or were they just looking at it because it was communist?
Well, both.
Okay.
Because Castro was newly in power. We didn't like Castro. He came in and he immediately turned his country communist, makes noises about affecting the rest of Latin America, that he's going to influence everybody. So right away, he sets himself up for a problem.
Yeah.
But then the Soviets come along. They like having an ally in Castro. They like having an ally in the Western Hemisphere because they don't. I mean, he's the only one. And the idea of the missiles is to threaten the United States the same way the Soviet Union is being threatened by our missiles in Turkey. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's a scene that I love in this book where Khrushchev is walking with his wife. He's walking along. He has a vacation home on the Black Sea. And he's walking along with her, and he's looking at the water, and he says, right out there, right across, this water is Turkey. And there's missiles over there, and they're pointed at us. Why shouldn't I be eager to put missiles in Cuba and do the same thing to them. I mean,
Fair point.
logically,
Yeah.
it's a fair point. It's a little more complicated than that.
Of course it is.
And Kennedy has to deal with that.
Yeah.
And you have other characters in this story that I love. I mean, you've got the General Plaev, who is the Russian commander in Cuba. I mean, he's in charge of everything going on there with the Russian troops. They find out immediately that they have to keep the Cubans in the dark, and they're keeping the Cubans out. So the Cubans are not real happy about that. But it was the Russians' way of saying, look, let's just get the job done and with all this interference. But there are two other stories here. I call them cameo chapters, where you've got the American Navy lieutenant who's on a destroyer. And that happened, and this is true. All this is true. The destroyer, the Joseph P. Kennedy, coincidentally JFK's father,
right?
And they get the word that there's a ship coming into the American quarantine line. Quarantine is the nice euphemism for blockade,
right?
Because blockade is an act of war,
right?
Yeah.
So they call it a quarantine. And here comes a Russian ship or a ship carrying Russian goods. Stop it. Go aboard. Take a look. See what's there. And if it's contraband, turn them around and send them back to Russia. And the American guys on this destroyer, they're being ordered to do this with no idea what's going to happen.
Right.
Because this could start the war. This could start World War III.
It's a lot of weight on their shoulders.
Exactly. So
Terrifying.
that scene, I love how that plays out. And the other one, and this is also true, and a lot of people have mentioned this to me. I thought it was conspiracy theory until I researched it. There was a Russian submarine captain. I mean, the Russians have submarines all over the place out there watching what we're doing. And this guy can't reach Russia on his radio. Well, he immediately jumps to the conclusion the war has started.
Oh, God.
Oh no.
And he's got nuclear tipped torpedoes. And it's like, okay, it's time for me to, for Mother Russia, we're going to fire the torpedoes. Well, that would have started the war right there.
Right.
But how that plays out with some people on the ship with him is another. I mean, and that's talk about a what if.
Yeah, really.
That's a big one.
What kind of damage would those nuclear tipped torpedoes have done, though?
When they actually impacted an American ship, which is what he would have done.
Right.
He would have torpedo destroyer or a cruiser or aircraft carriers. There were some of those there too. The Essex was there. They would have created one terrific blast. And I mean, it would have been a nuclear blast. It might not have been something as big as Hiroshima, but it would have been a nuclear blast. It would have certainly destroyed the ship, the American ship, completely, killed everybody. So and he had more than one of these things.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Did you get into all of the chess game at the UN?
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Adlai Stevenson is the American ambassador to the United Nations, and he is a twice failed presidential candidate. He runs against Eisenhower twice and loses, and he sort of has his tail between his legs, and he's a very pacifist sort of guy. But he's in the UN, and Kennedy really doesn't have a lot of confidence that he's going to do the job, and lo and behold, he confronts Ambassador Zorin, who's the Russian ambassador, and with the photographs and these things are blown up huge, and takes him into the UN. That conversation, I watched that on TV. It was on Walter Cronkite. The confrontation between Stevenson and the Russian ambassador, it's cool. I mean, it's good stuff.
It really is. Is it true that, and I'm trying to remember the details of the story, but his assistant had the photos, and they weren't going to use them at first. That was going to be their ace in the hole. Is that right?
Right.
And the assistant, whatever's playing out, for whatever reason, he thinks they're not going to need them. And then the Russian ambassador comes back, and the assistant now is in a cab leaving the UN and listening to it on the radio, and hears the denial of everything, and then tells the cabbie, like, turn around, and he runs back in with the pictures. Is that true?
Yeah, and the problem is that Stevenson, for as good a job as he does, he is a pacifist, and he's got that job because Kennedy. It's politics.
Yeah,
he gets rewarded for being the candidate for president twice, so he's a legitimate Democrat, and so he gets appointed to the UN. But when he comes to Washington and when they meet in the XCOM meeting, which is all these guys with Kennedy, they're talking about all this. Stevenson is the one guy who says, "Oh, we need to settle this with talk. We need to, this needs to be negotiated and conversation, and we just need to keep talking." And meanwhile, the Russians are building their missile launchers in Cuba. I mean, they're not stopping.
Right.
And Kennedy's really disappointed by that, and he sort of sends him back to New York and go deal with the UN. As it turns out, it works out really well.
Now Kennedy's dealing with the Joint Chiefs too.
That's another story. The Joint Chiefs, who are not a part of the XCOM, General Maxwell Taylor sort of is their spokesman, and he comes in. He's part of the group that's dealing with all this stuff. But the Joint Chiefs are there. And Kennedy actually goes and sees them at one point, sits down with all of them. And there's one particular guy, and this is a name that a lot of people know. It's General Curtis LeMay, who is the Air Force Chief of Staff. And he's a hero, legitimate American hero in World War II. He firebombs Tokyo. I mean, this guy is quite accomplished. But he wants to launch the missiles.
Right.
He wants to make a first strike.
Yeah.
Let's take them out now. And that's when they begin talking about a winnable nuclear war. And the talk is, we will lose 20 to 40 million people, but the Russians will lose everybody. Somehow that's considered acceptable.
Wow.
Which is why Kennedy sort of says, "Yeah, thank you very much, guys. I'm going to go back to my XCOM meeting now."
Right.
Yeah.
You know who plays him in 13 Days?
No.
Buster Kilrain.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh,
Kevin
right.
Conway.
Right.
Kevin Conway.
Yeah.
Yeah. The late Kevin.
The late
Conway.
Kevin Conway. Yeah. Does Kennedy kind of get pissed at them, or at least LeMay?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's not like he's just kind of like, all right, guys.
Wouldn't you?
Yeah, they're acting like basically like one-trick ponies.
Yeah.
I mean, they're attack. I mean, that's all they want to do, and they can. I mean, if we could have attacked, we could have invaded Cuba. How many people we would have lost? And interestingly, I had never heard of this. The Russians have nuclear artillery. It's a field cannon that fires a shell that is a nuclear bomb. It's a small load nuclear bomb. But when if you have an invasion force coming in on the beach, which we would have done,
right?
They would have been gone.
They'd have been gone. I mean, we'd have just obliterated the whole invasion. So, Kennedy's aware of that. But again, the Joint Chiefs that's the only way they think. They're the ones with all the fun tools, the fun weapons. They want to use them.
Yeah. Wow, what a scary time. So you
really
remember that you were a kid?
Oh yeah.
And did you believe something was going to happen? I mean, what was it like? Do you remember what you were thinking?
Yeah, well, I mean, again, the school business was ridiculous. And
did you know that at the time?
Oh yeah, I mean, of course. I mean, I remember distinctly my father coming home, bursting in through the door, and saying, "Turn the TV on. Kennedy's about to declare war." And, we ran over, we turned the TV on, and back in the day, I love aging myself. We had one channel, and we had to, channel 6 in Tallahassee, and we had to manually turn the TV on and adjust everything, and, with the antenna.
Tube had to warm up and everything.
Yes, exactly. But I can remember that. I remember sitting there listening to Kennedy's speech. Which is I put that speech in the book in its entirety.
Oh yeah,
where he spells it all out. But I mean, I remember that, and the idea of learning what an atomic bomb is.
Yeah.
And I put a little something in the book about that because we didn't know.
Yeah.
I mean, we had no idea. And then they started talking about the hydrogen bomb.
Yeah.
Which sounded a whole lot more scary.
Right.
But I mean, this was, that was the Cold War.
Yeah.
That was the time I grew up in, and it was a reality that we lived with all the time.
Yeah, that's got to be because I was growing up as a little kid at the end of the Cold War. So we weren't hiding under our desks. I think by then they'd figured out that wouldn't do anything.
Yeah. And now that's just for tornadoes.
Yeah. The worst we had were bomb scares once in a while at school. But that's got to be terrifying to grow up with that shroud hanging over you the whole time.
Yeah. I mean, it was a presence.
Yeah.
All the time.
Yeah.
And I mean, it started in the 50s before my time. But then into the 60s, and then, of course, Vietnam starts, and that creates a whole different kind of thing.
Right.
But it was, it was a terrifying time if in this country, for sure.
I'm actually looking forward to reading this book because this is, I'm telling you, watch that movie 13 Days.
I've seen it.
Yeah. Oh, you have?
Yeah.
Okay. It's a great movie, and but it's just, it tells the story really well because it's a complicated story.
Yeah.
Right? You got all these moving parts. You've got the White House, you've got the Pentagon, you've got Russia, you've got the UN, and just all these different things. What's going on in Cuba, the blockade or the quarantine. And they do a pretty good job of telling that story, as I'm sure you do.
Well,
whenever I can get a hold of the book, I will, because I went looking for it today at bookstores. It's not out yet, but it should be soon.
Yep.
But people can get it at jeffshaara.com, and you autograph them.
I autograph everything.
Yeah.
Yep.
So if you order it off of Jeff's website, he'll autograph it and send it on out to you.
Yep.
You would actually do your own shipping?
Yes.
Oh man, you are a patient man.
Well, I have a basement, and that's where my distribution center is.
Oh, okay.
And the worldwide headquarters of jeffshaara.com.
Hey, that's
nice. All right.
That's nice to have.
Yeah.
When you were doing, I know that you really get into the mind of your characters. I mean, how else would you be able to write the dialogue and all that kind of stuff? So was there a character as you were writing this particular book, because you had lived through it, that you were like, I don't want to know what's in the mind of this human?
Well, there's a Russian guy who Khrushchev has to deal with. He's the Russian equivalent of Curtis LeMay.
Okay.
He's a guy who tells Khrushchev, launch the missiles. And again, he's that sort of militant-minded guy who could have, the difference is Kennedy is in command. He's the commander-in-chief. In Russia, Khrushchev is in command, but it's very, very shaky because in Russia, it's all about power. There's no votes. I mean, there's no election. And Khrushchev has succeeded. When Stalin dies in the early 50s, Khrushchev becomes the most powerful guy, which is why he's in control.
Yeah.
But anybody at any time can take him out.
Yeah.
And actually what happens eventually later on, after all of this, is that's exactly what happens. Brezhnev, who comes in the late 60s and 70s, comes in and removes him. I mean, just like that.
Yeah.
So it's a very different kind of a system, and it's a lot scarier to think what Khrushchev's dealing with compared to what Kennedy's dealing with.
Yeah. Was there anything that you were surprised to learn while writing?
Yes, I love Bobby Kennedy. I loved Bobby Kennedy, until 1968. I love the fact that Bobby is doing the work for his brother. And who is more? Bobby is the Attorney General of the United States. What's he doing dealing with foreign whatever? Well, he's the one guy his brother can trust. And so Bobby is dealing with a Russian spy, which is a great story. He's dealing with the Russian ambassador. Those back and forths are really fun. And I have to say, because I don't want to give the impression that this is a history book. This is a novel. It's a novel by definition because you're there. You're in the heads of these characters. I mean, I've done my research, I promise. And I've read so many memoirs from so many of the people who were there, including Bobby Kennedy and including Khrushchev. His memoirs are incredible. It's this huge, thick thing, and it was edited by his son, Sergei, who just died a short while ago. And Sergei was an American citizen, lived in Rhode Island, and he smuggled out the manuscript to the West because the Russians didn't want to release it. Right. So we have this thing, which is terrific.
Wow.
So it's that's the resource that's the search that I do to put me into the heads of these characters and tell you their story the way they would tell it.
I know this isn't a book about Khrushchev, but from what you were able to read about him, what was he like? Was he like this evil, bloodthirsty tyrant like Stalin, or was he more somewhere in the middle?
That's a really good question. I'm glad you asked it, because the fact of the matter is Khrushchev's a nice guy.
Okay.
He's a family man. I mentioned his son. He has a grandson. They ask the question, he's talking to his son, asking the same question that's being asked in this country. I hope those people love their children the way we do. Yeah, and that's a fabulous scene when he talks about what's at stake here.
Yeah.
This isn't just, two ideologies duking it out. No, this is the world.
Right.
This is ending the world. What's that worth?
Yeah.
And I love that. I love that kind of thought process because it's on both sides.
You have to be psychotic to want to end the world, because you're ending yourself as well. Like
Sure.
you, yourself, and all you love and hold dear. Why would you do that?
They've never watched those movies with the fallout of a nuclear war. They needed to you need to sit down and watch one of those movies and go, "Ooh, I like taking a shower. I like having toilet paper. I like having all of these things that I have every day.
I like not having tumors on my skin."
Yeah, and if we do something like that, all of that goes away.
Right.
Yeah.
You're right. The simple things go away.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everything.
How much do you like toilet paper?
No.
And based off of how we were during COVID, a lot. People like toilet paper a lot.
I still have like 12, 16 packs of toilet paper from COVID.
Just in case, man.
Yeah, you never know.
I never want to have to live without it again. But I mean, I think you and I had talked about this before, but people underestimate the amount of research a novel requires.
Well,
if it's going to be a good
not
one.
Not always, because, and I've had historians sort of question me on this, because a novelist can do anything he wants.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody's writing fiction, it's fiction. And they can, create characters and do all kinds of stuff. That's not what I do. It isn't what the way I do it from the beginning, from Gods and Generals. This is my 20th book, and I'm painstaking in getting it right, getting the history accurate, doing the research. Plus, I'm putting words in the mouths of significant historical figures.
Yeah.
You better get it right.
Right.
Because people care.
I told you this before. I'm very fascinated by you and the fact that you really had no designs to become a novelist, right?
Not at all.
No.
Growing up in the house of a writer, which is what I did. My father was a failed writer.
Right.
He taught at Florida State to make a living because he could never make a living from his writing. So, and also his relationship with publishing is adversarial. He's always in a fight with somebody. He's always yelling into the phone. There was nothing about any of that inspired me to be a writer.
Right.
I became a businessman. I went totally in another direction. It was only after he was gone and the opportunity sort of presented itself that I decided to take a shot and see if I could do it.
And here we are, 20 books later.
20 books. Yeah. Can you imagine that? And it's not 20 books about the same topic.
No.
It's 20 books about an insane amount of different topics that
Once
your brain has to hold.
Once you started leaving the Civil War, I was like, how the hell does he do this? You really have to have, I think, you have to have a really firm grasp on the era, the event that you're writing about, the people involved. And any one of those things can take a lifetime for somebody to do.
Oh, yeah.
Right? To learn it and to really understand it. And you're doing these, how often are you putting books out? Not on a schedule, but
pretty much on a yearly basis now.
Oh, it is.
It's for the last few years. It's been that way. Which is tough, by the way. I'm not in love with that schedule.
No, it's got to be grueling.
But you said you were working on something now, and you do it in chapter order.
Yes,
that's insane to me.
Why?
Because first of all, he has to do all of the research so that he can start from the beginning and go to the end.
Right.
As opposed to, I'm going to research this one thing, write about it, and then put everything together.
Later.
Yeah, and piece the narrative together.
Right.
Which is how I think I would have gone about it.
I could never do it that way.
No,
yeah.
I don't either.
Because like you say, I write it chronologically.
Yeah.
From beginning to end.
Yeah, and I think that's fascinating to me.
Yeah.
I can't hold that much in my brain at one point in time.
That's why you write notes.
I do make notes.
Yeah.
I would be terrified that I would wake up one morning and that ability in my brain just dried up. Are you ever afraid of that?
Why would you even put that out?
I'm sorry. I don't mean to do that. Well, because,
Well, you know what you're talking about. You're talking about writer's block.
Yeah.
My father suffered from that,
Really?
constantly. He would sit, we're talking a typewriter now, not a computer.
Right.
He would stare at the typewriter for a month at a time because nothing would come out.
It's awful.
And it was, he would get depressed about that. He suffered from depression. Yeah. All of that's what I grew up with is watching him go through that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I couldn't. Yeah. I there are moments with this stuff that I'm just like, I got nothing. And it scares me that
That's why you
it's
have
not
friends.
Yeah. Well, and actually, you're right. People have given
He
me
has
good
Stephanie.
ideas.
We have
Yeah.
us, you know.
Well, no, and it's true. People have said, "Well, why don't you do this?" And then I go, that's actually a good idea. And then I'll sink my teeth into it, and that'll get me going again. But yeah, I mean, I would just be. But I'm not making gazillions of dollars doing it. That's what would scare me. If I'm making a really nice living, and then all of a sudden I'm like, that would scare the hell out of me.
Well, it is intimidating to have a publisher in New York who's saying, "How you coming with that thing?" And I mean, so far my relationship with my publishers has been fabulous. I've had several editors; those relationships have been fabulous. Unlike my father, who was cussing at people all the time. So I mean, I've been very fortunate with that. But there is always that in the back of my head that there's a publisher waiting.
Yeah.
And there's an editor waiting to get started. And okay, it's time to go to work.
But there's no pressure they're putting on you, is what you're saying.
I put the pressure on myself.
You do it on yourself.
Oh yeah.
Do you think that's easier or harder than if someone else was doing it?
Oh, I think it's easier.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah.
Because you're in control of it. It's your own.
That's right.
Yeah, but that's if you didn't have a good editor or good editors or a good publisher, do you think that would make it just a nightmare of a process to write a book?
I did one book back. This has been almost 25 years ago now. I did a book, and I had a new editor who was editing the book, and this guy was awful.
Oh no!
And he said, "We're going to change your writing style." He said that right off the bat. So then he starts showing me what he means, and I'm not doing this. And,
Right.
and I hate to say it this way, but the next thing I know, he's gone. I mean, the publisher, took him out of the game.
Right.
And then I got another editor, but I mean, that's only happened once.
That's a person who wants to be a writer themselves and is trying to do it through you.
Yeah.
Probably. Yeah.
So you mentioned you've talked about your father a few times here, and we're coming up on the 50th anniversary of the Killer Angels, which started all this madness.
Yep.
And 50 years ago, what's the date that it was released? Do you remember?
It was in April 1974.
Okay, so we've already passed the anniversary.
Right.
And is there anything special going on to celebrate?
Yeah, the publisher and I had a conversation about this at Random House in New York, and I have written an introduction for both the paperback and the hardcover, which is something I wouldn't do up until, I mean, they've asked me all over the years, put an introduction into the book, it'll help sell it, that kind of thing. And I wouldn't. That's my father's monument. I mean, you don't need my words in the Killer Angels to make it any better.
Yeah.
But this time was different, and we thought, for the 50th, I need to write something that makes sense for my, a tribute to my father, a tribute to the book. And so it's coming out. I mean, I'm waiting on the publication date right now, but it should be fairly soon. And again, it's the paperback and the hardcover. And I know for a fact, because they sell a lot of the hardcover at the Visitor Center, that they'll have it. I mean, eventually, probably by the end of the summer.
So that when he wrote the book, was it a hit right away?
No. I mean, it came out in 1974. It was a small independent publishing company, the David McKay Company published it. They took a shot, and they paid my father like $3,500 or something.
Oh my
It wasn't
gosh.
much. And it did nothing. I mean, and again, I've said this many times. Think about what's going on in 1974.
Yeah.
It's the end of the Vietnam War.
They're wore out.
Nobody wants to buy a book about generals. And but then, amazingly, the next year, spring of 75, my father gets a telegram. Congratulations, The Killer Angels has won the Pulitzer Prize for fiction.
Wow.
Now, you would assume it's going to be a hit.
Yeah.
Anybody wins a Pulitzer Prize has the right to believe, good things are going to happen to my book.
Yeah.
Again, it was out of fashion, out of vogue, and it didn't do anything. It sort of, if you were a Civil War buff, you heard of the Killer Angels. If you were in the military, you were at West Point, Annapolis, you were required to read it.
Even back then?
Yes.
Okay.
Because I talked to some people who read it in the 70s. But it was floundering. And, and my father went on, because one question I get a lot, what other historical works did he write? None. Nothing, because his book didn't sell. So he went on. He wrote a baseball novel, For Love of the Game, which was made into the movie with Kevin Costner.
Yep.
He wrote a Hitchcock sci-fi story that was really bad. He wrote a college riots in the '60s book that didn't sell. I mean, we have the manuscript, but that was it. I mean, that was his career until. In 1993, when Ted Turner puts out the movie Gettysburg based on the Killer Angels, the book becomes a #1 bestseller 19 years after it was published and 5 years after my father's death. He had no idea. He had heart disease. He died. He was only 59.
That's so sad.
It is. It really is sad. The whole, because I relate to that, the frustrated artist, and it's to think that this great thing happens, and I get the Pulitzer Prize, and then nothing,
exactly.
It's like just my luck.
Yep.
I got this family to raise. I
have to tell you a little story. Pulitzer Prize winners are invited to go to the White House.
Right.
I mean, it's like a state dinner, which is great. Gerald Ford was president, and my mother told me this whole story. Well, they seat you at different tables. So my father's one place, my mother's another. My mother is sitting next to Dick Cavett on one side and Bill Russell, Boston Celtics, on the other side. I mean, he's 9 feet tall. Right. My father is sitting next to Henry Kissinger. And he gets into an argument with him.
As you do. Yeah.
Your dad, are you going to write a book about your dad? No. He sounds like a character. I'm sure it wasn't so entertaining to grow up under him, but there's these stories, I'm picturing this kind of high-strung guy.
That has been suggested many times.
Yeah.
And it's been suggested in other ways to tell my story, relative to growing up in his house and so forth. I don't know. There's stuff that I used to say there's stuff that I would never write as long as my mother was alive. Mm-hmm. Well, she's not alive. So
now you got to do it.
I mean, well,
why don't you not make it about you two, but make a father-son novel and just put it into it and don't tell anybody.
Nobody would believe it. It would be too far-fetched to work as a novel. And I'll just leave that there.
Okay.
And see, that's one of the things that I think is so fascinating is you were talking about your father coming in, bursting into the house and saying, turn on the news. His father, who is saying that, is the author of Killer Angels.
Yeah.
You have to kind of put that in perspective sometimes. That's bizarre. And we talked about this.
You mean what? That he was like a normal guy with a family that said, turn on the TV.
Yeah, the same guy who is writing these in-depth characters about the Civil War and making you feel not only for one character, as most novelists do, but for multiple characters. Mm-hmm. That's what made that so fascinating to a lot of people. And your books now, too, you are in their heads. And that's fascinating because that's character development of a whole nother level. Right. And then the same guy that's writing all of that is sitting here going, I got to go home and tell my kids that Kennedy's going to declare war right now. that to me, there's such a odd
and then you have this big moment where you get to go somewhere where most Americans don't get to go, and you get in an argument with Henry Kissinger. So that's funny to me.
And I'm sure your mom was sitting there going, "Oh my God."
Yeah, exactly. Oh yes, absolutely.
Oh my God, tell him to shut up.
Yeah. Do you know what the fight was about?
No.
Oh God, I would love to know that. What was your dad? Was he a political guy?
Not really. I mean, as I mentioned in this book, I mean, and giving something away here, but my father's in the book, and he's pro-Kennedy in a town where I grew up, where everybody else was pro-Nixon. And it was that kind of he taught at Florida State. In that sort of liberal environment, and you had town versus gown. I mean, there was a war between Tallahassee citizens and Tallahassee and Florida State University. I mean, they did not get along, and the further you got into the '60s, the more violent it got.
Right.
And there's all kinds of stories about that I could tell you. And my father based a novel on some of the things that happened.
Okay, that's what that comes from.
But he finished it. I said he finished it after Killer Angels. It was actually, he finished it and sent it to New York in 1970. Kent State had just happened. people are, publishers are looking at this book saying, we can't publish this. I mean, it's like his timing was awful.
Yeah.
He hit it just wrong.
What do you think if you were to psychoanalyze him, what do you think his problem was?
Look at that face.
I know.
Well, he was bipolar.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So
he suffered and probably on the downside more than the upside. I mean, he suffered from depression.
Right.
And that was true his whole, before I came along. I mean, that was I heard that back in college. He was doing at Rutgers. He was suffering that way, and that was just who he was.
So, and that I struggled with depression for a while, and it makes you do stupid things against your own best interest. It's really
fascinating.
Okay. It's also comical. Like once you kind of get out of it and you can look back at it and you can go like, well, you don't get out of it, but you learn to manage it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can kind of go, well, like, how did I let that do that? But a lot of people don't.
No, I mean,
think about that.
For him, it was debilitating.
Yeah.
It affected his writing. It affected his relationship with his family. I mean, it affected everything.
Right.
I think you can tell in the writing. I do. Like, you can kind of see it. Like, when I was little and the book and the movie and all that kind of stuff, you start to hear, like, the whole Armistead arc.
Yeah.
Like, there are moments in that movie where your heart is just bleeding for this man.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then you read a biography of Armistead, and you're like, oh, okay. Like, maybe he wasn't as sad about that. Like, there's a different way of looking at that maybe, but I think that's the writer coming out a little bit.
There's another example in Killer Angels too, and that's the character of Longstreet.
Yeah.
Longstreet is sort of a depressed guy.
Yeah.
And I think my father related to him.
Yeah.
And it shows,
And
like you say, it shows in the writing.
Yeah. And I find that fascinating. Like, as an adult, going back and like learning into this nerdiness as I have become, you look at it differently. And I've reread it recently, and it's very, like, I cried a lot as I was reading it.
Depressed people are very
and I know
good
what happens.
They're very good at describing heartbreak.
Depression and
because
sadness.
that's all we know. It's hard. Our whole life is heartbreak.
Yeah.
Even when things are good, it's always heartbreak.
Yeah, I'm sitting there going, I know what's going to happen.
Nothing is good. I mean, when he won the Pulitzer Prize, I mean, again, one would think, talk about euphoria for a writer. It's the best thing that could possibly happen to him. And my mother told me within 3 weeks, he was right back down again.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I get that. Like, that's my luck, like something great like that happens and nothing, like just nothing. And then you see, you've seen other people before get the same thing and through to the moon, and you're sitting there going, what happened? Like,
where'd that go?
Yeah, I mean, I relate to that, and I know, like, when you said that before, I got a little punch in my heart for him because I can see myself having that exact luck.
happen.
Yeah.
So, before you do anything, can we talk a little bit about July 5th?
Sure.
Okay. So, the foundation.
I don't have that on my list. Okay. What?
So, on July 5th, the foundation is putting on an event where Jeff is one of the stars. Ta-da! With Stephen Lang and Harold Holzer and Tom, whose last name I can't remember.
McMillan?
No.
He's a
musician.
He's a bass
Tom Jolin?
Bass player with the New York Philharmonic.
Oh.
Yes.
He is a soloist with the bass.
Yeah.
Which, if you think about it, that sounds weird.
Yeah.
But he is fabulous.
Yeah.
And
I'm excited.
He's
for
going
that
to
part.
be the interlude in between the presentations, and I'm really looking forward to that.
Now, I'm not going to lie. Stephen Lang sent the script, so to speak, to us so that we could kind of preview it. I guess just let us know what it's going to be like a little bit.
Right.
And my boss gave it to me, and he said, "Here, read this because this is pretty amazing to read." And I was going through it. There's like every emotion.
Yes.
There's laughter. There's crying. There's like, oh man, like what the heck is that all about? And it's a fascinating thing. There's like little vignettes throughout the entire thing, and there are tickets still for sale through the Gettysburg Foundation. But it's not just these guys doing the performance.
You are too. You're going to be singing.
No. He pulled that clip of me, opera. Right. But there will be a dinner with a Q&A. So you get to ask questions with these guys too. So you can kind of be involved in the experience, which is really, really cool because they're fascinating humans. So I think...
Where's this being held? At the Visitor
Center? It's part, she says in quotes, of Sacred Trust, but it's kind of a separate thing. Right. So the tickets are available on our website at thegettysburgfoundation.org. And it promises to be a really unique and insanely nerdy, which is I'm excited about, evening. So are you excited?
Yes, very much so. What Stephen did is he took, we put together everything we're going to do.
Yeah.
And then he took it and organized it into a script, naturally. I have this thing, so there's going to be a lot of reading and a lot of reciting. And as you say, Janet Riggs, former president of Gettysburg College, will be the moderator for the Q&A.
Yes.
It's going to be a fun evening. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
So you guys, you're like passing off what you're going to read, like, one after the other, you just read something based off this script?
Back and forth.
Yeah?
Yeah.
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 So you're going to be doing some acting? Is that what we're saying here?
Well, Stephen can't help but do acting.
Well, I know that. Yeah. But you?
I'll do okay.
Okay. I'm looking forward to this.
I think it's going to be a lot of fun because I think you're going to see, especially Jeff and Harold, I think in a different setting than they're normally in.
Yeah.
So I think the Q&A afterwards is going to be fascinating. So I highly recommend. I read the whole thing. And
what's the event called?
An Evening with Jeff, Shaara, and Stephen Lang. We don't have a title for it.
Okay.
But I think it's called the Battle Hymn. What I think
that's right.
The Battle Hymn.
We threw some names around, and Stephen, Harold, and me, and Stephen chose the Battle Hymn.
Yeah.
Which is sort of double meaning.
Yeah.
It'll be fun.
Here's the part that's going to be kind of crazy. So for the Q&A, myself and a volunteer, Dan Orr, are going to be the ones that go around the audience to get the questions to ask to you. And I know eventually there's going to be that question that's going to be like, I can't ask them that. And I got to come up with...
Who says this?
I want to know what that question is.
I don't know. It's just,
what kind of question do you think you're getting?
I don't know, but it's going to happen. You know it's going to happen. And then I'm going to have to look at you in the eye and go, boxers or briefs, Jeff? You know it's going to happen.
But wait, why? Just because you received the question, why do you have to ask it?
It depends on how many you receive.
Yeah.
You could get 1,000 of them.
Yeah, it's going to be insane. Yeah. And it's limited tickets. It's only 150.
So reserve ours.
We're at 115.
Okay.
So it's almost sold out. So get to it. And I haven't pulled my friends members from it yet. So it's probably actually 140.
Available.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
So
and then we get ours comped as members of the media. Thank you.
But I'm it's gonna be cool. Yeah. I'm excited about it.
Good. Yeah. And that's July 5th.
That's July 5th.
Yes.
We're gonna have a run through on the 4th, by the way.
Yeah, so good.
Yeah. I'll be there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm fascinated by this. I want to see this.
The script is like so eclectic.
Well, I have to tell you that we're not going to read the script.
Yeah.
Because there are proprietary reasons why we have to be sort of cagey about that.
Yeah.
But Stephen and I will talk about it. I mean, this is a co-production Stephen and I wrote.
Yeah.
And we will definitely sort of introduce it, to the people and tell them what it's about.
Okay. All right. Mm-hmm. I think I've heard about this. I think I know.
So if you want to be the first people in the know, this is the time to do it.
Yes,
buy a ticket, be there, and get to hobnob with some famous historical nerds.
I get it. And what does Harold Holzer do?
He's going to do basically the same thing I'm doing. I mean, he'll do a lot of Lincoln-oriented reading and so forth.
But is he part of the project you guys?
No.
Okay.
No, the script is Stephen and I.
Gotcha. Mm-hmm. Well, this is going to be. This is interesting.
I know.
Yeah. I'll have to twist your arm to get some tickets.
Well, I only got invited. This is how highbrow it is. Bethany's not invited. The only reason I got invited is because I have a code to the visitor center, so I can lock up at the end of the night.
You're essential.
I was like, oh, okay, that's all right, guys. I'm glad I'm here to help.
And you can crash the party, right?
Yeah. Right.
Well,
Oh, that's
I
funny.
even bought a dress. Be impressed.
Like a gown?
That doesn't happen. No, but I'm going to be out amongst the public.
Yeah.
So
All
you
right.
could do the question.
So then maybe I wouldn't fit in there. It sounds like.
Well, no, I need to.
If
I'm
you're only
staff.
going because you're staff, then clearly this is
No,
more the
I'm just-
elite of
no,
the area
it's
that
not
are.
like it's not like that.
Okay.
But it is one of those things where the Bethanies of the world that are the nerds, we're staff.
Yeah.
Know that I
okay.
love you. Know that I
Oh.
love you, Jeff, and that I am going. I'm shaving my legs.
Okay.
I am buying a dress, and I am going to this event. It is a big deal.
It's a big deal to me, so.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be a bigger deal now that her legs are going to be shaved.
Hey, I don't do that for just anyone.
Listen, ladies and gentlemen, you can get a hold of Jeff's book, The Shadow of War, at jeffshaara.com. That's SHAARA. Okay? And he'll autograph it for you. Also, and when is the new edition of The Killer Angels coming out?
I don't know.
You don't
I'm
know.
actually waiting to get word back, but I will put that on my website
I was
as
going to
soon
say.
as we know.
Okay, so it'll also
Yeah.
be on the website there. So, bookmark jeffshaara.com for your Jeff Shaara needs. And let us know what you think of The Shadow of War, because that is another fascinating era in history there. So, I'm looking forward to reading it if I could ever get a hold of it.
Is it a cry book, do you think?
I'm sorry?
Is it a cry book?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
And you said that your father is in the book, like named in the book, or a character you based.
and I'm not going to say another word about it.
Okay. We'll have to just figure out who it is. Is that
We'll
what you're
have
saying?
an after action report.
Yes.
All right. Listen, Jeff, thank you very much for
Yes,
coming on.
thank
I
you.
appreciate it. Good luck with this book.
Thank
Good
you.
luck with everything. And, thank you for being a pal and coming on the show. I appreciate
Sure.
that.
Happy to do it.
All right. And then we'll be
We'll
right
see you
back,
in July.
ladies and gentlemen, after these words.
Yay!
Been craving a Hot Pocket or a bag of popcorn? Now's the time to go and get it. We'll be right back.